Speedway Report is produced and broadcast by the Zeus Radio Network for Racers Reunion Radio. Now, Daytona testing for sports cars begins some exciting anticipation coming up for the Rolex 24. Do my stock car fans remember when NASCAR used to do the same? Some of our Racers Reunion folks certainly should. And we have some early January short track racing. That's fantastic, even though some of it falls on its face. Well, we've got all this and more coming up. Welcome to Speedway Report, Monday, January the 6th, 2020. From the shores of Lake Norman in Race City, USA, Mooresville, North Carolina, I'm Patrick Reynolds, and thanks for joining the fastest half hour in racing. Great to be back. New year, new show. Has been a while. We've been off for a few weeks since before Christmas. Good to see everybody back here from the holiday break. First broadcast of 2020. And have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? I am not going to forget to remind you guys to keep doing that. Even in the new year, we did that all of last year. Good to have you back with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. First show of the new year. I've missed you guys. Have you guys missed me? Maybe not. Maybe you haven't. But yeah, I've certainly missed all of you and being back. It's good to be back. It's good to be back in the swing of things. Break was nice. Christmas, fine. New Year's good. I'm ready to go racing. And we are. We've got some stuff to talk about. There's just no off season anymore. Let's talk about it. Let's head down to the beach. From really our northern audience, any place would be good right now. I'm not at the beach. I'm about halfway to the beach that we speak of. Keep going to the Daytona Beach, Florida. IMSA staged their annual testing for the Rolex 24, aptly dubbed the Roar Before the 24. Let me give you the news there. Olivier Pla topped the DP charts in the Mazda Team Yost car. This determines garage and pit stall selection for the Rolex 24. Oliver Jarvis and Tristan Nunez will join Pla for the Rolex 24 as co-drivers when the race week kicks off. The race itself is about 2.5 weeks away. In 2 weeks from today, those haulers will be down there. We're going to talk a little bit about the importance of this test in this qualifying session and how it relates to the twice around the clock race at the Daytona International Speedway. On the short track world, the World of Outlaw late models got a very early start with the Battle of the Border at Vado, New Mexico, a three-night event. Last Thursday was won by Chris Madden, Friday night's A-Main by Ricky Weiss, and Saturday by Kate Dillard. That is about the earliest as I remember the World of Outlaw late models kicking off their series. I remember plenty of dirt races in the Southeast. The World of Outlaw late models tour, got going right away, and they were just in Charlotte a matter of weeks ago to wrap up 2019. The New Year's Day Bash in Dillon, South Carolina for street stocks was won by Gary Ledbetter. In New Smyrna Beach, Florida, a little bit south of Daytona, the Red Eye 100 is now the Red Eye 50/50 with a split features for the super late models and pro late models. Brad May won the super race, and Jeff Nolan took the 50-lapper for the pro late models. The annual Ice Bowl was staged in Talladega, Alabama. Not too bad of weather, though. Michael Page won the Dirt Late Model Classic for his third year in a row. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Tulsa Shootout just concluded. We're going to talk about this race tonight. Emerson Axum won the Winged Outlaw feature. I'll just pause with the results right there. We're going to talk about this event more in a little bit. And indoor racing up in Allentown, Pennsylvania. On Friday night, the three-quarter midgets were won by Eric Rudolph and the champ carts by Tyler Brown. Saturday night's three-quarter midget race was won by Ryan Flores and the slingshots by Dylan Hoke. Now, results are in. First weekend in January done. Let's talk a little bit about what's happened since we last saw you. We talked about Bill Simpson a lot with his loss. And since we saw you last, we've also lost Junior Johnson and Randy Sweet, two guys that added so much to the sport. Junior with the foundation of NASCAR. When you talk about the moonshine runners, Junior's pretty much it, running moonshine up at Wilkes County in souped up cars. The legends, all the stories of NASCAR's history, all true with Junior Johnson. and the contributions that Randy Sweet laid to short track racing are immeasurable, with parts, equipment, safety, racing. Somewhat of a Junior Johnson of the short track world. But rest in peace, guys. Both gentlemen, so much they contributed to our sport. Now, let's talk about Daytona Beach and the roar before the 24. We had testing down there. I told you Olivier Pla, he set a new track record, kind of unofficially, but during a test. It stood for a number of years, and so he set a new lap time. You're thinking, so? Yeah, big deal. Okay, it's quick. He's crazy, you know, set a fast lap. That's nice. Mazdas are good. So what? Aha. The testing down there in the roar and the qualifying time, so to speak, determines the garage and your pit selection for the Rolex 24. Those of you that have been to the Daytona International Speedway, as is even the grandstands, but especially if you've been in the pit area, are starting to get a picture of what I may be alluding to. Those of you who have never been to the Daytona International Speedway, let me explain the importance of these lap times in the roar testing. Think of it as a qualifying session, fastest to slowest. And instead of our weekly Sunday morning, you know, or over the weekend, you get your pit stall selection for a 500-mile race. That's nice. In this case, we have garage and pit stall selection. Why is this so critical? Because of the location and the layout at the Daytona International Speedway. We dive off of turn 4, hit pit road, and we make a sharp left, really on pit in, very, very early on pit in. That is where the garage area and pit stalls begin to be counted, the pit stalls on pit road, but the garage area is right there, and it is all to the turn 4 side of the pit stalls. Now, we've seen that pit road on Daytona International Speedway. It is a quarter of a mile long. We hold 43 cars for the Daytona 500, 40 now, I guess, but we'll hold possibly 50 or 60 when we throw the green flag for the Rolex 24. Here's the difference. Every single car likely will go behind the wall at some point for a mechanical repair during the Rolex 24. That is a race not to the fastest, but to the farthest. And how you manage your parts replacements, your mechanical failures, or just your mechanical maintenance during 24 hours will dictate how well you do in the Rolex 24. People lose gearboxes. We change brakes. We change transmissions. We change all kinds of parts on these cars that they break. You lose time. You lose laps. If you can do it in the garage, or you have to do it in the garage, it is a whole lot more convenient if you are at that turn 4 garage stall and your pit selection close to turn 4. It helps you manage so much more of that race, as opposed to your pit stall being close to NASCAR turn 1. I should specify that, turn 4 and turn 1, the NASCAR oval. If you are pitting at the Rolex 24 all the way down towards NASCAR turn 1 and turn 1 of the road course, you've got a quarter of a mile to haul your toolbox, your equipment, your parts, and your guys that are staying up overnight to run this race back to the garage area. A quarter of a mile you got to walk to repair your car, as opposed to the teams that are close to turn 4 where they can walk a matter of feet to start repairing their car. This has the capability of making a difference in your finishing position greatly in this race. It's a tough race, twice around the clock, sunrise, sunset, breakfast, lunch, dinner for 2 days while you still race, and every car will have something break on it. Every car will have a mechanical failure. It's what you do and recover from that is how well you do in the race, not to the speed, but to how well you manage the race. And if you can have a garage stall very close to pit in off of NASCAR turn 4, the oval turn 4, that is a big difference, especially when we get up to the prototypes, when they're dueling for the win, and not just class wins, all through the GTLM, GTD divisions. There is going to make a big difference. So I would not be surprised one bit if we will see the factor of Mazda getting their pit stall selection and their garage stall selection make a difference. It's strictly logistics. If the garage area was located in the center of the speedway or the center of pit road, this would make a lot less difference. It's not. The garage area is entirely located in the turn 4 side of the oval. before the pit road stalls even start to be counted. Garage selection, extremely important. Watch this Mazda team. I'll be very surprised if this garage selection doesn't come into play with how teams manage that Rolex 24 at Daytona in a few weeks. Now, the roar before the 24 testing really gets me jacked up. As we've just spent several minutes talking about testing, the Rolex 24 coming up, and it has always been I'm a big fan of the event, been to it several times, would like to go back again. Doesn't look like that's happening this year anyway. But remember when NASCAR used to do this? Remember the winter testing down at Daytona? There was private testing. There was odd and even testing with where you were in the point selection. We had the testing. I don't know if the teams really got a whole lot out of it and it got an expense to it. There was a whole lot of cost to this whole operation for these teams. However, on the fan side of you, there was a lot of excitement and pot stirring. This would get race fans and the media kind of, jazzed up for Daytona Speed Weeks coming up. They don't test down there anymore for NASCAR, so it doesn't happen. I don't think the teams, for a competitive angle, I don't think they need to anyway. It's just a cost for them. What I'm looking at is from a fan's point of view. Fans used to get really pumped up about testing of that little bit of time because we like to race 52 weeks a year. It hasn't been that long since the engines went silent in NASCAR. But it was a big deal. There was news, there was testing, there was speeds. Who was playing hooky? Who was pulling a fast one on the other guys? Who really had a legal car? Who was trying to get away with something? Are these lap times worth a darn? Who knew? Who knows? Probably, I don't know, it's all these questions. But it generated a whole lot of excitement, which NASCAR needs right now as far as energy, press, sponsor exposure. We were great at this 20 years ago. NASCAR is not so great at this now. They had a fan fest down there, no longer. Remember the Winston preview that took place in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. RJR Tobacco, big fan, big supporter of the sport years ago. That was a big deal. Even the motorsports show up in Philadelphia coming up here soon from Area Auto Racing News. A lot of the NASCAR big names would come up to that. The media tour no longer exists here in the Charlotte area. We used to all meet, get on buses, be transported around to different shops. They would show you the cars and unveil them, and we would eat and take pictures and have interviews and have all kinds of media content that you could use now. You could use it during the year, but it was a great opportunity to talk to folks. Now, we have media day pretty much, earlier, about midway through the week. I think it's Wednesday before the Daytona 500. So we're going to ask everybody questions, and then we're going to ask them the same questions in a few weeks ago for media day. And in recent years, the Charlotte media tour was not a tour at all, but we were sequestered in a room at the Charlotte Convention Center, and drivers were just herded through there like cattle. And we asked them a few questions. They had their few minutes. They plugged their sponsors, told us how excited they were for the season to start, and off they went. When we met the teams at the shops, there was a whole lot more personality. They weren't there at a press conference with other drivers in a very stale, neutral, vanilla spot. They were at their race shops. They were with their guys. The race teams hosted us. They fed us. The food was good. I miss the party atmosphere that we used to have with so many things. We just don't do these things anymore. On paper, there's always a good reason to not do these things anymore. But just personality-wise, hasn't the sport been neutered enough, from the party days that we used to have? And yeah, I'm going to get to the big picture of the neutering here in a little bit too, because it's something I want to talk about further with NASCAR. I'm going to jump away from NASCAR for a little bit. I'm going to come back to it. Hang on there. Relax. The Tulsa Shootout, I gave you a rundown a little bit ago. Told you Emerson Axum won the Winged Outlaw feature in Tulsa. The Tulsa Shootout is a week-long event that begins right after Christmas. We get a load-in day right around New Year's Eve, and it's run for several days over New Year's weekend. And they had 7 classes of cars at the Tulsa Shootout. This is at the exhibition center where the Chili Bowl will be held in a couple of weeks. It's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so you're familiar with the track with the Chili Bowl. Same place, same structure, same racetrack, but we have the Tulsa Shootout a couple weeks earlier. 7 classes of cars. Do the math on this, 1,200 entries. I'll say it again, 1,200 race car entries for the 7 classes. Why is the Tulsa Shootout flying so far under the radar? The Chili Bowl coming up is a mammoth event with just a few hundred entries to this thing. And we're going to go for, I think, 6 nights of racing, 5 nights of racing with the Chili Bowl. The Tulsa Shootout, 1,200 entries. And we're there for 3 or 4 nights. Just the staggering amount of cars and pit crew guys that are at the Tulsa Shootout. This should be just getting so much more press here. It's hidden under the radar, I'll admit, from me for several years now. I've just heard about it in recent years, the Tulsa Shootout. I said, what the heck's the Tulsa Shootout? I had to be educated on this thing for winged outlaw cars, basically the CC world, the cubic centimeter racing world. If you want to simplify it in a nutshell, goes to the Tulsa Shootout. And the CC world is pretty much the fastest growing section of motorsports right now with the short track racing that they provide. The racing at the Tulsa Shootout, we know the track, we know how big a deal this is, but just this event, that's what it's come down to. Like so many things in racing. Financially, it probably doesn't make sense to go, but the last thing we want to have make sense or try to make sense in the world of auto racing is the finances and the bookkeeping of the sport. That's the silliest thing I ever heard of. You don't want to look at money. You don't want guys to go broke, but don't look at making money either, because it makes no sense. I don't know. We wouldn't do this if we had to make money at it. But the Tulsa Shootout, when you get just a staggering amount of over 1,000 cars for an event, why are we not talking about this more? I don't know. I talked about it last year. I'm talking about it this year. And I'll talk about it again next year. But just the Chili Bowl creates such a buzz and such a big deal. And this Tulsa Shootout is just flying under the radar pretty hard as far as the national media goes. It will catch the Chili Bowl in time, but it is that big. It is that huge an event. But it's not getting the attention it deserves. Tulsa Shootout, look it up. Go to your Google machine and check it out. I want to jump back to NASCAR, as it was just this whole story kind of flew over my head, and my own fault for not paying more attention to this, but it's due to NASCAR playoffs, and I don't pay attention to them any much because I don't have much interest in this watered-down championship that is offered for the NASCAR Touring Series. Matt Crafton, great race car driver, great team with Thor Sports, wins a title without any wins. Wins a title without any race wins. Isn't that the big deal with this playoff system? And I mean, it was the idea that you can't lock the championship up, 3 or 4 weeks ahead of time, like would happen once in a while, not every week, not every year, but what happens sometimes. But anyone, it reminded me of Ryan Newman's run. The first year they had that 4-car playoff down at Miami. Ryan Newman would finish second in that race, and he was mere feet away. You could see the leader of the race. He was mere feet away from winning the championship. And that year, was it 14 or 15? I can't remember now. But Ryan Newman, driving for Richard Childress, had 2 top 5 finishes all season long. Yet he pointed his way round, worked the system, made it to the top 4, and was mere feet away from winning a title when it was he was had 2 top 5s all year. It's a ridiculous system. It doesn't crown a champion that's good start to finish. Never has. It's an artificial, tight, one race, phony, fake 4-way tie. It's a crock. Matt Crafton, great race car driver. Thor Sport Racing, great race team. System NASCAR uses sucks. Always has. I'll go every week and beat this drum since 2004. We haven't had a legit Cup championship system since 2003 and Matt Kenseth. Looking at some late model races that did happen over the weekend, a little bit of the short track action. New Smyrna had 14 cars entered in each of their 2 headlining classes, the Pro Late models and the Super Late models, giving them a total of, do the math, 28 between the 2 sharing the headline class. Talladega had 42 cars in their headlining Super Dirt Late model class. That began with practice on Thursday, and qualifying Saturday, features on Sunday. New Smyrna was simply a one-day show. You could practice on Friday, but you showed up Saturday to race. What's the difference? Why are we getting 14 in a headline class for on pavement, yet on dirt we got 42? And hit me up with answers. And if you're in the live feed or following a podcast later, write it in the comments if you got an idea between the pavement and the dirt. I think it's rule systems not working together. On the pavement late models, just in pavement world, short track world in general, they're just more splintered as far as rules. And the dirt track world seems to overlap a whole lot more. That's my suspicion. That's what I think. Let me know your opinions. I want to hear in the comments off to my side over here or below, depending on where you're watching me now. But yeah, I would like to hear what you think is the reason for dirt late model healthy car counts and the pavement late model. Other than, like the Winchester 400 or the Snowball Derby, we don't get a huge amount of cars that really require too much of a consolation race. Dillon, South Carolina raced over the weekend here in the sunny South. It was a nice day. They got the show in, but lots of cautions. And no time limit on any races was the gist I got of it. And for the amount of races you actually saw on the laps everybody saw, it was way too long of a show. Maybe should have had a time limit is what I've seen on the support classes. When a mini stock feature at 50 laps takes 2 hours, and the headlining 110-lap feature for street stocks takes 3 hours. That's too long for race fans to sit even after the sun sets on a Sunday night. A lot of fans did not stay for the finish of that big race. Great idea with the New Year's Day bash at Dillon, South Carolina. Just poor execution. You can't have race fans sitting around that long. They don't like it, and they're not going to come back. Dragged out short track shows are just, it is a problem we can write a lot of columns on, and we broadcast a lot on. I've talked a lot about them here in the short track world. You cannot. You got to have an efficient show, come up with a system to do it. It's a must. It's not even an option anymore. In 2020, we're fighting short attention spans. You need to zip these shows along. Florida Speed Weeks. Yeah. It's January 6th in less than a month. A lot of haulers and vehicles will be down in Florida. We talked about the haulers for the Rolex 24 heading there in about 2 weeks. I am making plans to go down. I'm looking at the Racers Promoters Workshop, looking at the schedule for New Smyrna, looking for Volusia County events, and some of the early Speed Week stuff at Main Street Station. There's usually a collaboration, North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame, as well as Main Street Station, honoring the legends of racing at Daytona Beach with Phaedra Lee down there over at the North Turn and Main Street Station. I got to check that out in the schedule there and see what is happening in the world there. Trying to put my itinerary and schedule together. Haven't been to Speed Weeks in a few years. Looking forward to getting back to Daytona. And as always, a tip of the hat to my inspiration, Dave Despain and Motor Week Illustrated, who groomed the roots in the foundation for the vision for this show, my Racer of the Week. When you have, even in 7 classes, you have a big event where 1,200 vehicles sign in to compete. And the A-Main, the biggest class, the Winged Outlaw feature, Emerson Angsom. Yes, your winner. He is our Racer of the Week, winner of the Tulsa Shootout. Well, in between our broadcasts, keep up on the sport at SpeedwayReport.com. We've got all of our archived shows there, so if you want to catch a past one, download something for a road trip to Daytona Speed Weeks, please do. And hook me up on social media. On Facebook, I'm at the Speedway Report with Patrick Reynolds' Facebook page and Racers Reunion. On Twitter, I'm at Speedway Report and at Speedway Pat. These shows are also stored at RacersReunion.com in the forum. Don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel, Speedway Report Patrick Reynolds. Please. Thanks to everyone on the Facebook live feed for joining the conversation during the show tonight. We'll talk to you guys here in a little bit. Thanks for chiming in. And I want to thank all of the Americans, past and present, for the freedoms we enjoy as Americans in our daily life. The simple things like bench racing right here on a Monday night. Freedom is not free. And a veteran paid that bill for us. To all of the men and women who are defending freedom and watching Speedway Report, take care of yourselves and come home soon. A special salute to the teachers, school staff, firefighters, police officers, and paramedics. in our own communities. They are quiet and modest heroes every single day. God bless and thank you. You have been watching Speedway Report from the shores of Lake Norman in Race City, USA, Mooresville, North Carolina. Please like our Facebook page, Speedway Report with Patrick Reynolds, and you can follow me on Twitter at SpeedwayPat. Now, if you are on Facebook Live right now, please go to the Drag Racing List page. Drag List Live is ready to kick off at the top of the hour. Bill, John, and Barb are ready and waiting for you with open arms. Now, I'll be back live here on Facebook 1 week, Monday, January 13th, 2020, as we begin Chili Bowl Night 1 in Tulsa, or talk about how NASCAR pissed me off and aggravated this week, whatever's going on in the world of auto racing. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week.